Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I'm going to show y'all how to make a scale mail breastplate. So let's get started. Alrighty y'all, so in today's tutorial we are going to be weaving a scale mail breastplate for costume purposes. So before you come at me in the comments about how my rings are only budded, this is truly just for cosplay purposes. I wouldn't even necessarily recommend this for like heavy LARPing or anything like that, just because I don't think the aluminum would hold up well. If you replaced the rings with stainless steel, or even went the route of the split rings, links for all of this will be down in the video description. But if you go that route, I think that would be a little bit more LARPing friendly, but please don't go out and like, you know, wage battle in this costume armor. So disclaimer aside, we are going to be using 16 gauge, and that is a standard wire gauge, 1.6 millimeter for if you don't count in chicken nuggets, and 5/16 of an inch. That is the inner diameter of the ring. So that is 7.9 millimeter. And this chart came for free with the rings that I had ordered from Chainmail Joe. Links down in the video description. I really enjoy Chainmail Joe's bright aluminum. But also I've used rings from the Ring Lord, typically American chainmail I've had very good results with. So for pliers, you could use flat nose, like these ones here. 2 in each hand. You could use tapered flat nose. Like I like these because I weave a lot of very small chainmail as well, you know, as opposed to this is the ring size we'll be working with today. So I like these because I can go either way with it. And I'm a really big fan of bent nose pliers. I hold mine like this. I've seen folks hold them like this. I also like, oh, let's see, I've got another one here. Sometimes I'll hold like this, and it just gives me a little bit more option. There's no right or wrong way to be holding your pliers or which pliers to be using, because it's all about making it as ergonomic for your hands as possible, because we are going to be working, this top takes me about 3 hours, so I want to be as comfy as possible. So I'd actually extended my pliers to where they could accommodate my pinky as well, using some thermoplastic, because you know, some pliers it's just not there. And so make whatever modifications you feel you need to make. And so we're using the 16 gauge 5/16 inch rings, and I am using, I believe they're labeled as the large scales on the ringlord.com, and these are anodized aluminum. And I don't know exactly how many rings it is going to take, or how many scales or rings really. So good luck on that one. So we're gonna start, if you'll notice on these scales, they have a convex side and a concave side. I like to have them concave side down. So to start this, I'm just gonna hook through. And you could do this either way. I'm starting to wonder if this is a good color of scale to use, but it's kind of all I have. So whenever you're starting out, you either want to have them back sides together or tummies together. It's not super important. I kind of just go with whichever way it ends up happening, and then we're going to close that ring. Now these rings, whenever I get them, they come in the bag kind of like that, and that's just because of the way that rings are made whenever they're coiled on a mandrel and then cut. And so we'll want to open our rings by getting a nice connection point. I don't want to be using the very dainty tips of my pliers. I want to be using the wide side, so I've got a good grip. And then the way that I weave is I like to be able to see where I'm putting the ring, so I weave this away. Whereas some folks will go like this, that way they can see where it's kind of like quilting with a needle, you're pressing up from below. Entirely personal preference. I recommend trying both ways and seeing which you prefer. So now, and I've got a whole big canister of rings already open. So now we have, I'm going to open these like a book. So, just to where they're both kind of tummy up. And I weave tummy up for the scales for the remainder of the top. So I'm going to just set this here. We're going to add in a third scale. And with this one, I want them to be back to back. So I've just hooked through, and now I'm going to close. And so now we have our 3 scales just there in a row. And this one's actually going to be the very tip of the top. So we're going to start by making 2 triangles coming down. We can draw this out. So the top that we're making today is going to start with these 2 triangles that will then be joined together into this style of breastplate. So at the broadest point, that's going to be 10 scales wide. So that's going to be 10 rows this way. And then we do the attachment row. So the broadest point of the whole top is going to be 21 scales. And then we'll continue to reduce down to just 1 scale this way. And so this scale right here is right there, is the tippy top of the top that we're making. So now that we've kind of visualized it together, you can see how I've stacked these 2 scales just on top of that one. This is how it's looking from the front side. And I'm going to get a few more rings out. And I am an agent of chaos, so please pardon the mess. And now our next row, that's our row of 1. This is our row of 2. Next is a row of 3. Pardon me. And so now I like to lay them in the position, get them all prepped and ready. And I'm going to be demonstrating this a whole lot from hopefully a couple of different angles to be, hopefully be able to help y'all to be able to weave the scale mail of your dreams. So tummy up, I'm just hooking through so that that scale's on there. And now I'm going to come in behind this scale. Scale 1 of row 2 if we're counting from right to left. So there's that one, and we'll position that just down like this. And now from here, I'm going to hook through scale 1 of row 2 again, but on the other side, and I'm just going to set that scale right on there, and then we're going to close it. Now I'm going to pick up another ring. We're going to hook through that brand new scale that we had added, and then I'm going to place that scale, the farthest left scale from row 2. And the rings are going to be kind of jumbled and nothing's quite laying right. Trust the process. You've got this. So we're going to take this ring, hook through on the side there, attach that scale, and close. And so now, and it may be helpful to you to go ahead and put some extra rings or a ribbon or something on our first scale. That way you don't lose it, because sometimes it can get a little overwhelming. But just with a little bit of primping, we can get all of our scales laying the way, like kind of correctly. And so now we're going to do this again. The next row is going to be 4. And now if you would like to make your scale mail just this wide in a wide strip, we would continue on with the pattern, alternating rows of 2 and 3. But I've always found scale mail the edges like to roll in on stuff like that. So you may want to back it with a piece of leather or even craft foam, because, and you'll see here in a minute, well, it may be quite a few minutes, but these loops, like the holes in the scales, you can actually use those to like whip stitch onto a backing. So you could use old denim, like you could sew it directly onto leggings, or leggings that you've modified into an armband, like you know, an arm sleeve. And so if there's a crafter, there's a way, y'all. Okay, so our next row is 4. So I'm just going to pick up this scale and or this ring in this scale, and I'm going to hook it on, and then I just boop, 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 come on down here. I'm going to press on this one just a little bit so I can get in underneath it, and then we're going to close, and then I'm taking our next ring, lifting this scale, hooking through, picking up, setting down, and close. Now the good news is you just do this over and over again, you guys. Like, this is kind of it. So I'm gonna hook through this ring through that scale, lift this one to put it on there. Now, I don't necessarily know if I recommend scale mail for your very first ring weaving project. I think I would recommend maybe familiarizing yourself with a European 4-in-1 chainmail, which there should be links up on the screen to link you to that tutorial if that might be helpful. But everybody comes from different creative backgrounds. Everybody learns at different rates and paces and in different ways. So to me, it's very helpful to understand the other weaves, you know, but this may be all the tutorial you need. And so I'm hooking on here and then laying on that scale, and then we're going to close it again. And now again, it's all jumbly and weird, but we just keep track. 2, 3, and 4. And we kind of primp it a little, and that's looking pretty good. We can now flip it over. And it doesn't really look like much at this point because there's not really a whole lot there. So we're going to keep on building again to that row of 10. So let's do a row of 5 now. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so I'm going to hook through this scale and on the end there. Picking up another ring, lifting the scale we had just woven into, and adding a new scale. Whoops. Sometimes my pliers slip, that's okay, these things happen. And then we're going to hook through the scale we just added and weave it back into the already completed row. And if it helps you, you can kind of primp each way. So right here, that can look like it's incorrect. It just takes some primping. And so, if you are familiar with the European 4-in-1 chainmail weave, you may be noticing the pattern repetition that all of our aluminum rings are laying in one direction, and then all of our scales are laying in at a different direction. And I think this is very cool. So inside each complete scale, this isn't going to apply to the ones on the edges, but for the interior scales, there will end up being 4 rings inside each scale. So here you can see this scale right here has 1, 2, 3, 4 going through. At no point in making these tops, unless you're getting creative and doing something experimental on purpose, but to follow along with what I'm doing here, at no point will we be weaving one of our rings through another ring. That's a no-no for this. It's going to complicate the way that things lay and move. So we're just going to add in the new scale. And then we're going to hook it back to that one. And being right-handed, I do work right to left because my right hand is covering what I've already done. There's no reason why you couldn't weave it from right to left if that works better for you. So there we are. We're halfway. No, we're not. We're kind of halfway there. We're on row 5 out of 10, but each row gets longer. But that's okay. We can do this. Let's try a different camera angle. So we're going to experiment a little bit. I've got the camera precariously perched. But, oh, so that was 5. So let's go ahead and set up our row of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so we're going to hook through right here. And then we're going to lift this scale and hook on and close. We're going to take another ring, hook through that scale, hook that one on, and close. And close. It gets very repetitive and meditative. That's why I think I like to set up the rows of how many scales go into that row, because then I can just kind of switch my brain off and just let my mind and thoughts wander. And sometimes I'll have a show on, but sometimes it's nice to just be in the quiet and give myself room to think, give my hands something to do. Oh, do 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 do, herp and derp, doodle boop and doo doo. And then on to the last scale of this row. And folks will say, oh my God, you have so much patience. Y'all, I am not a patient person, but I am really good at tricking myself. And the way that I do it on this one is every single ring is an accomplishment. Every single row is a victory. It's like, we did it. We just got to 6 scales wide. So now we get to do it again. But so just kind of, if you find yourself overwhelmed with the larger project, just go 1 scale at a time, baby. You got this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there we are at row 7. Uh-oh. I'm using my ring container to prop up my camera. I don't even know if this is a good camera angle, you guys. I hope that this is helpful to you. I really do. Because I think scale mail is awesome. And it is so versatile. Like, ooh, and then I think we'll do a separate tutorial on how to attach scale mail to like a straight across band. So if you don't want to start it on a point like this, so like if you want to attach it to a belt or to an armband or like to some other kind of costume piece, because otherwise these tutorials are going to be like forever long. It's probably still going to be pretty long anyhow. And let me know down in the comments if y'all have any other questions or any specific scenarios that you would like for me to demonstrate with the scale mail weaving. Now, I do get a lot of questions from folks about if these tops need to be lined, and I'm going to be upfront with you, yes. It is a very good idea to wear something underneath these, just because they can chafe, especially if you're like dancing or being rambunctious. It's just a good idea to wear. I've seen the gentlemen wear Under Armour, like if you're, depending on the look that you're going for. There's this fellow we had made a custom piece for that was like a little bit of a pharaoh top, like style that was like scale mail and chain mail, and it was pretty cool. Like I liked it, but he wore Under Armour, like that really form-fitting, moisture-wicking, sleek, just solid black Under Armour under his armor, which I thought was neat. And then whenever the tops are being worn in like bikini style, like Red Sonja cosplays come to mind, I recommend wearing your support and structural bra, or at the very least a like string bikini, and then you can actually thread the string of the bikini strap through this top loop in lieu of adding a whole separate strap altogether, and that way it's more of like a decorative drape. But these tops do get kind of heavy, and they do kind of pull everything down. So again, I do recommend, for like typically for cosplay purposes, you get everything hoisted up where you want it to be and then start layering the chainmail on. They also layer really, really well. Sorry, I'm drinking some coffee. Cheers, everybody. Clink. They look really good over an overbust style corset. And so that way everything's like supported and structural. But again, keep in mind with that, if it's like lacy, like if the corset is very lacy or has like fine embroidery or something on it, you may still want to put some fabric underneath this. And again, you can just cut the fabric out and whip stitch it to the edges. As you can see here, you've got some nice equidistant spacing. And so we're gonna do another row. I actually think I'm gonna put this into super duper fast forward or something, or maybe just through the magic of editing, meet you back here for the next part, because I'm gonna get both of the cups woven to this point, and then I'll meet you back here for joining them together. So I've realized I haven't gone over how to close a ring. So we're gonna zoom in quite tight on this. So you can see here, this is how the ring is open. Now, whenever we're closing, if I just close it too, even if it's really well lined up, there's still that little bit of a gap. So what I like to do is I wiggle forward and back, applying just a little bit of inward pressure to push those ends towards each other so that we can get a really nice budded ring. So that's what I mean when I say to close the rings. Okay, so I did some quick math, and this style of top right here takes 341 scales and 682 rings. Now, purchasing from Chainmail Joe on Amazon, 1 pound is about 3,000 rings, and May 2024, that's $23.99 for the pound. So that's the math on those numbers. I do hope that that's helpful to you. And now we're gonna do the connecting point. So I'm actually gonna set the camera on like super wide mode over here. And used to, I would go ahead and start the decrease, but I kind of like it with just that extra, didn't seem like a whole lot, but 1 scale wider is just nice. So you can, once you have the technique down, really you can do the design however you like. But we're gonna do 21, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. Now we're going to start at the far end, just like how we did before. It really isn't going to get any different until we get to the middle here. So, also, something that I wanted to talk to y'all about, sometimes a ring just comes out funky. Sometimes, like, I know whenever we were coiling and cutting our own rings, if there's one that's at the very end of the spiral, like we actually have some older videos here on the YouTube channel that they're older, but they still check out, covering how we coiled and cut our rings back in the day. Currently, it's a little hard on my hands and we don't have as much space for it, so we just order ours from Chainmail Joe or the Ring Lord. Their prices are so reasonable that unless I need like bulk of a very specific size, I just outsource it. It gives me more time to just get to weaving. But whenever we would coil, because we'd take this big spool of wire, and we would spool it around these stainless steel mandrels, and then we would use a tool called a ringinator, which has an arbor for like a jeweler's saw and like a little guide plate, and it hooks up to a power drill. Like it's a very cool contraption. But and then we'd feed it through and it would saw cut it with the blade was like 0.001, so like 1/100th of an inch, I think, which was really nice. I love saw cut rings. But the rings on the very end wouldn't always necessarily be a full circle. So if you come across any rings that are just kind of funky, I wouldn't take that personally. Those things just happen. And as much as, we tried to, because we used to like ship out our own rings and stuff as well with part of our craft along kits, sometimes a goofy ring just makes it through. And then also sometimes if a ring goes sideways, like whenever you're opening it or closing it, and it's just kind of jank and weird, I wouldn't hesitate to just set those rings aside. And we save all of our aluminum for if we want to melt it down one day, and I don't know what we're going to do with it, but hashtag hoarding. But don't get hung up on trying to make a ring work if it, like, let me purposefully mess one up. Like, okay, so if we've got a ring that just is not doing well, instead of trying to force this ring around into being perfectly, well, round again, I'm just gonna put that over in my scrap pile and get on with my weaving. So I've seen folks in some of our classes, whenever we teach at conventions, like really getting hung up on trying to make that ring like work, and it's like, no, it's just move on to the next one. So I'm going to zoom in because we just got to where we've put on 10 scales. And this is where we're going to connect to the other cup. So I'm going to hook through here. It's going to be just like before, as though we were to continue just making it increasingly wider and wider. But now, and also you want to open your rings up enough that you can actually work with them. Like usually at around a 45-degree angle is pretty good for me, though. You'll find what works for you. So I'm going to hook through this ring as though I were going to add, or through this scale as though I were going to add another ring. Oh my god, I've hooked this ring through this scale so that we can add this one here. And then we're going to close it. And now I'm going to hook through that scale. Well, there goes that bag. Sorry, loud noises. That's what I get for trying to perch an entire bag of scales in a cup holder, but that's just me. And then we just continue kind of across. So this is that joining scale. And so we're going to keep weaving across here. Now, I personally really love the breastplates. We call them breastplates. This style of scale mail top where it's low in the center, but you can totally do a bikini style top, or again, that's just what we call them, where now that we've joined this here with that one scale, we would then decrease down to this side and we would decrease on the other side. But I'm gonna show you how to just do the solid across in this tutorial. So we're just gonna continue hooking on and hooking through. see if zooming in might be helpful. So again, if you wander away from your work and you're coming back and you're trying to figure out where you had left off, I would look for an end. So our end down here, and then I just follow the scales back in until you can see where a new row of rings has started. So then that means I'm going to hook this ring through this scale. Now also, there are a lot of really good tutorials here on YouTube, but I also recommend checking out theringlord.com. Has some really great weaving resources and even some written tutorials. Maileartisans.org, M-A-I-L-L-E. And these should be linked down in the video description as well. But there are a whole lot of resources. The whole community of chainmailers can be really amazing, and I'm proud to be part of the chainmail community and a chainmailer, and it's a lot of fun, and it's always nice to meet other folks who are into weaving chainmail, or especially who are interested in learning, because then we get to geek out about it. And so we're just continuing along. And now I'm going to show you, when we've finished this row, how to do a decrease, because we've been making this just wider and wider and wider. And you can keep going to however wide as you would like. Typically, if I am making a custom scale top for someone, we get we'll get their bra measurement, like, so if it's like a 38D, or just whatever their bra measurement is, or a 32A, and so we'll get that information, and then we will also get their underbust measurement, which is around their rib cage, just in the booth, or we'll have them measure themselves and send us the info. And then we also get an overbust measurement. I don't know if these are industry terms, that is just what I refer to them as. And the overbust is over the fullest part of the bosom, or if we're just if it's your pectorals, or if you're, however your costume, if you're wearing it over other costume pieces, we'll get that measurement as well. And that way we can make sure that this area here will cover where you want, like, that overbust, because we'll get the full measurement around the torso and everything, and then we'll also have them measure where they want the scale mail to start on one side of the body, and then around to the other side of the body over the fullest part of their chest. So that way we can make sure that the scale mail, without being pulled too tight, will provide the kind of coverage that they're looking for. And I love doing costumes in person because it enables me to get exactly the kind of measurements that I need while the client is wearing one of the pieces in the booth, because typically they'll be like, oh, I love this one, but it's not quite the right color scheme, or I want this and that different, or we want it a little larger here or a little smaller there. And so I love getting to do those custom pieces, because quite frankly these tops can be kind of expensive. I'd have to consult with my other half to see what we're charging for them, but in the past we have charged anywhere from $100 to $300, like $100 to $300 for this style of top. A lot of that depends on what kind of strapping and different things, like if because on these ones we just do ribbon, typically is standard, just where we'll loop the ribbon through like a little bit of a lark's head knot, and then it can be tied however. But we have some folks who want leather strapping, or a continuation of the scale mail. I really love using stretchy chainmail for on the straps, because that way it's a little bit more comfortable, because it's going to be bearing the weight of the whole top onto your shoulders. And that's something that really depends on the customer and on the costume, and how it needs to mesh with other costume pieces. Okay, so we've gotten that whole long bit done, and we're going to start over here on this side, And we're going to get our whole row, at least for a couple, prepped up. So now, instead of adding a scale off to the side on this side, this is going to be our farthest corner. So I'm just hooking through and then adding a scale. And so we just skip that first, that would have been the expansion row. And so closing that ring, hooking on, closing that ring. And whenever I close, I want to make sure that our closures are just as good and closed as possible. Just because all the tender bits and pieces, but also if you're wearing like a leather corset under this, or some other armor piece or costume accessory or Under Armour, you just want to make sure that you've got good closures. That way it's not scraping around on stuff and leaving burr marks or snagging fabric or anything like that. And so we'll just continue all the way across. Through the magic of editing, we're just gonna keep going. Y'all, if you already know everything in the whole world, just put in like 2 times speed and skip on ahead. But for myself and the rest of us, or any beginners, we're just gonna go through it because you never know what might come to mind or what kind of hijinks we might run into that are going to be helpful to somebody. So my heart is always with the beginners. And y'all may see me, like y'all who are also scale mail weavers or from different creative backgrounds may see me doing something and be like, why do you do it like that? And I'll be like, I don't know, it's just how I do it. And so I learned so much from you guys. So if you do see something that you'd recommend an improvement on, or more efficiency, or like my partner, whenever he weaves, oh my gosh, he puts all of his stuff into like very tidy rows and everything. I say partner, but like we're married now. And that makes me so happy. So when my husband does this, oh, but yeah, he's so tidy and meticulous, and I'm just like, blah. Because I used to try to be, but I bump my work surface so much sometimes, you guys, or I'll like spaz out and drop my pliers, and then so it's just, Okay, so now we've hooked onto here, and we're going to grab this scale, that's our middle joining scale, and we're going to put that on. And then we're going to continue in the other direction. So just attaching that one, hooking through, hooking on, and close. 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 Now I'm going to meet y'all at the other end. Okay, so we are back here at the end, y'all, and I am putting this scale on and closing, and then I'm going to hook through and then hook that scale on, and we're going to close. And now let's primp and poke and make sure everything's good and in position. And that's looking pretty good. And now from here, if you did want to make it where it's one of the high center, like bikini top styles, we would just, how can I demonstrate this? Sometimes words are hard, so give me a sec. So for this style of top, I'm just going to continue repeating rows, decreasing each time. But if we wanted to do a high center, I would weave in scales this away on repeat to the side, and then this away on repeat to the side. So it would have all just bunched up to this center scale. and then kind of tapered out that way. So I do hope that that is helpful. If you guys still want to see a full tutorial on that high center, let me know. Now, another thing that we've gotten a lot of questions about in the past is like for making fitted tops, because these ones are going to be like very floppy at the ends. That's going to have to be a whole separate tutorial. I typically do not make that style of top because whenever we're making scale tops, we are carrying them in our booth to conventions and fairy festivals and, you know, different things. So I'm trying to make our tops be as one size fits whoever comes into the booth and might want it as possible. And whenever I do a gathered fitting, it really limits what bust size and shape and like distribution, because, you know, you've got the boobies are so glorious. They come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and positions. And so, you know, and then the wearer, you know, whoever's wearing the top may have different preferences and styles that they're going for. So, we found it was a better business move to just not do the gather, but we can do a separate tutorial on that in the future for if I'm making something that's, you know, specifically for like, you know, a client, like a custom client. And also, I think it looks, well, it's uncomfortable because folks will sometimes think that because it's a fitted scale mail top, they don't need to necessarily wear anything underneath it. And I personally don't think that that is the case, because you're basically wearing a giant epilator. Like it's going to pull hairs, it's going to pinch skin. It's not going to be kind to you. Man, I tell y'all what, after doing the whole top, we are on the last 5 rows and I am downright giddy because this has been, I don't even know what time I started recording, but it's like 4 in the afternoon and I'm trying to get this tutorial recorded before we go and kidnap our niece. And it's our last summer kidnapping her before she graduates high school. So I'm like all kinds of like excited and emotional and stuff, but got to get this tutorial before we're out on the road. That way, you know, whenever we get back, it's less work that we have to do, you know, whenever we get home. So I'm tired, y'all. But we're doing so good. If you're weaving along with me, you can do it. Just put on some like tunes or a good show or some tutorials and just weave away. Do not hesitate to break a big project like this up into multiple crafting sessions. So pacing yourself can really help you to enjoy a project more. It's not a race, it's a feat of endurance. It's a, what is it? Not a sprint, it's a marathon. So ooh, now we get to do another row. Oh, that being said, gosh, it is so gratifying to just kind of power through a project and just like get her done. It is very rewarding for me. Everybody crafts differently, but I'm a workaholic and really enjoy the happy brain chemicals of completing a project. So like that's it. That's all that we have left. The scales that I laid out on the table. So we can do this. Weaving, weaving, weaving. Got to keep on weaving, weaving. Do, do, do. Just keep weaving, just keep weaving, weaving, weaving. And at this point, you should be like a pro at weaving scale mail or something, because we've closed how many rings? We'll have opened and closed 682 rings by the time that this is done. So that is certainly a lot of practice. If you guys have any questions that I did not touch on in this tutorial, please do feel free to leave a comment down below. This isn't the end of the video, by the way. I'm just sneaking this in there. That way, to kind of fill the time, because I am losing steam and chatting with y'all, even though it's just me talking to a camera right now. But if you're watching this in the premiere, hey everybody, we release new tutorials every Sunday and Tuesday currently, but we're always changing things and mixing things up as our needs change with our scheduling. So if you're watching this quite a ways in the future, you can check out our website, backtoearthcreations.com, and near the end of that homepage we have a calendar of events where you can actually RSVP. That way, if YouTube isn't good about sending you notifications, you can RSVP for our different tutorials and live streams and things that we do here at Back to Earth Creations, and you'll get an email 1 hour before that event. We have not at this time figured out a way to be able to sign or RSVP to multiple events, but we are working towards bringing back just kind of sending out a newsletter. But some folks don't like getting spammed with a newsletter every time we have a new tutorial, because again, like, currently that's Sunday we do a tutorial, Monday we have our shop updates, Tuesdays we have another tutorial, Friday we have a live stream, and Saturday we have a live stream. So that can be a lot of emails, and if you don't want to get a bunch of emails, the RSVP is a nice alternative to that. Beep boop, we are so close to being done. Oh, now the next part of the tutorial, I'm gonna kind of just be demonstrating for to kind of help y'all along. But again, if you would like a deeper tutorial into any particular style or way of styling this top or tops like it, let me know in the comments. You can also send me an email at backtoearthcreations@yahoo.com with pictures of your work and any questions you may have. And I do give free advice. Like, I'm not going to charge y'all for consultation for things like that. Like, I can't weave it for you, but I can try, well, I mean, we do have tops for sale, so if you do want me to weave it for you, we do that, but not for free. That was our last scale, you guys, but I do free consultation, so if you guys have any questions or anything about that, we're going to flip it over, then send us an email. I'm trying to finish one thought at a time, and I'm so excited to be done with weaving this top. And so now let me put my rings away. Ooh, which, by the way, we don't just do scale mail here. We also do wire wrapping. We also do tie-dye. We also do resin stuff and clay stuff and all sorts of different things. If it's crafty, we want to get our hands on it. So, ooh, that's gone forever. Okay, so this is the first time I flipped this over. And do not panic if your scales are not laying perfectly. Sometimes you just gotta shake it, and sometimes you gotta poke it, and that'll lay everything out nice. Oh. Now these are some really old, kind of scuffed up, dirty scales from the Ring Lord. I think going through with some Windex will take right care of that. Do not use anything abrasive to clean your scale mail. But wow, I love that. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Y'all. All right, let's get to styling this. All right, y'all. Naked mannequin incoming. You have been warned. In 3, 2, 1. Don't say I didn't warn you. Okay, so this is J-Lo. She'll be assisting us today. I like to use this polyester ribbon that's about 1 inch wide, and I like to use about an arm span, and I cut on an angle, and we will need 4 lengths of this. So there's 2, 3, 4. Ooh, we had enough. That always makes me happy. And I will have links to everything down below, and you could use whatever ribbon width and like consistency. If you want to use velvet ribbon, that's really pretty. You could use cotton or leather or something like leather strapping in this same manner. We used to work with a lot of fire spinners whenever we did more festivals. Bump the tripod. When we did more festivals. And so you certainly do not want polyester if you are around fire, because that's just gonna melt. So what we're doing here is I have found the middle of the ribbon, and we are going to go through Doesn't matter if you come in from behind or through the front, just be consistent because that way it's gonna match. But we're just gonna push through that top scale. So there's our loop on the scale. And then I'm just gonna push the rest of the ribbon through, and then we're gonna pull it tight. And I like this because you can change out the ribbon for whatever color that you want, or you can swap it up for the different costumes that you're going to be wearing it with, or, you know, what have you. It's just a really nice kind of baseline. You can wear it right out of the booth, or you can modify it to do however you like. So again, making sure we have the scale that's closest to the tip, pushing through, opening that loop, grabbing the remainder of the ribbon, and pulling through nice and tight. And so now from here, we can take this and just tie it around the neck, halter top style. And now the scale that is farthest to the side point, the scales here and here, that's where we're going to take the other two ribbons. And I'm just feeding it through that side scale the exact same way in that lark's head knot. But yeah, so this is what I was talking about earlier, is I'll have people measure from where they want the coverage to start across the fullest point of the bosom. That way you can make sure to get good coverage. Something that you'll want to watch out for, and this is from a belly dancing perspective, you really don't want, or even if you're going to be like walking a lot in it or mermaiding, because these do hold up really well in both salt and chlorinated water, but it can chafe your underarms. So that's something to kind of keep in mind, is that metal rub is relentless. And so now we can turn her around and just tie here in the back. And this is regular kind of halter top style. Now another option that I personally like, because I do not like stuff pulling down on my neck, is I will come down a little lower. And you could use different knots. I'm just using a fancy pretty bow because for speed's sake, oh, it's stuck under her booty. Oh my. Okay, there we go. And then from here, we're going to take just one side and feed that through the center area. Do you see how that's holding? And then we're going to tie again. Now you can change how you do the knots on this however you like to make it less like bunched up, but I just wanted to convey the concept. And this holds very nice, and it's not pulling down on the back of the neck. Now, something that we had talked about earlier was doing gathers. You could do a gather where you're just removing a scale in one row. Let me know if you guys want me to cover this in a tutorial, but it can pinch. It can just pinch is the thing. Like, it's already pinchy and it just makes it even more pinchy. So, but, you know, to each their own. Move my scissors. Now the next thing I wanted to demonstrate to you is my preferred way, instead of doing a gather, to provide support. Just take a regular old bra. Now make sure that you're wearing a bra that is comfortable and that fits you well, because the scale mail is just going to compound any problems that may already be there. So like if their underwire is uncomfortable for you, then, you know, putting the scale top on it isn't going to change that the base bra is uncomfortable for you. So well, I'm just going to tie this in a knot. Well, there goes my scales. Let me get this situated. Okay, so for demonstration purposes, I'm just using some bobby pins here, but I think you'll get the idea. So let's presume that this bra fits the mannequin, but I wanted to demonstrate if you don't want to go the just ribbon or leather for the strapping route, and this applies to brassieres like this or over bust corsets as well. Now keep in mind, if it's an over bust corset without straps, the additional weight of the scale mail may pull everything down and out. So that's something to keep in mind. So you can see here, let me get the camera flipped around. So you may be able to see here, we can take this top edge of the scale mail and we can go through. I would actually recommend like an embroidery floss, like something that's decorative but also durable, and you can just whip stitch through along this top edge. And I would, you know, let me just demonstrate it. I'm not making this for anybody. I'm going to have to cut it off, but it's going to be better to just demonstrate it. So we have 5 feet of this embroidery floss, rough about, just an arm span. And I'm just feeding it through a large eye craft needle that is quite sharp. And then I'm bringing the ends together. And I'm just doing a little knot where I've wrapped around my finger and then I'm passing it through. And I'm going to want to start sewing from the center. So right where the cute little bow is, we're actually going to poke right through. We're off to the side of it. And I'm not going to go through the center scale, but I'm going to go through the next one up. And you could totally put like some large hold beads or like cowrie shells, but this first layer, I just worry about it being structural. And so we have these extra little bit of like, boop, we're just gonna snip that off. And so I'm going to try really hard to not have my hand be in the way, but just making sure I'm trying to give myself about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on the edge of the top, and then I'm just going through the scale. And what I mean by whip stitch is I'm literally just going to whip around to the back side, equidistant, so 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then through the center of the scale. And I'm using a very bright thread for this so that you can see where it's going, but normally I would use something either the same color of the base bra or just a black thread. So do you see how the scales actually make this really easy because I just pull them tight away from each other so that there's no loose scale mail material going on, and that helps me to get consistent spacing between each of those. And then coming around, whoop, through there like that. Making sure that we're not making any knots or anything, just pulling that embroidery thread through. There we go. And then coming through right here. And I start from the center because that way it's going to be mirror imaged on each side. And if I were making this for the client, if I'm making it for myself, I would have made, maybe a row or 2 wider. That way it would fully cover the base of the bra. But also, sometimes you don't necessarily want that, because again, any kind of movement may chafe. That's like the chafe zone there on the side. I realize now that my hand's in the way. I'm sorry, guys. But yeah, so I would actually leave this just material, and then we would come through and place that like so. And whenever it's not directly against the edge of something, I'm making sure to go through both layers of the fabric. And if it's giving you any trouble at all, I do like to take hold of my needle with my pliers and pull through. And then I'm going to continue this whip stitch down. And again, making sure to puncture through. I want to get the foam and everything in the bra, because there's a lot of weight getting thrown around here with the scale mail. And so this way, it's not just going to rip out that cute fabric on the top. It's got like substance. It's holding on to something. And so we would continue all the way down, and then whenever we get to the end, I would actually back stitch up. So pretend like this is the end with me. So I would continue, I'd stitch through again, back up this way, 1, 2, at least 3 stitches. And if you're worried about stability or durability, or you just really like the look of it, you could back stitch the whole way. But I would still, once we've back stitched as far as what we think we're gonna, do you see how it makes that cute little X? Then I would still come back down at least 1 or 2. Making sure that we're not getting hung up through the embroidery floss. And then from there, to finish it, I would then hide the remainder of the embroidery floss. I would kind of just, whoop, there we go. And then snip. So the last little bit of the tail of the embroidery floss is encased in the fabric and foam, and that's going to hold. Now, we always offer free repairs on all of our work, so if it ever doesn't hold, that's okay. And I actually really like doing this, because instead of hand sewing each of the scales onto the cup base, this allows for the bra underneath to become worn out. It allows me to do resizing if the client wants a larger or smaller cup size, or has gifted or sold their costume to someone else. We can still make modifications quite easily. And so from here, if I wanted to have a nice gather, I could come through on this bottom edge and do some stitching to get that to curve to the cup. So that's my personal workaround, not just as a costume designer, but as someone who wears these costumes as a belly dancer, and as whenever I compete in costume contests. Whenever you're wearing something all day, you need it to be comfortable, because by the end of the day, you're going to be miserable otherwise. And if you're miserable, you're not going to want to wear it. So, yep, that's all of that, you guys. I think that's everything. I do hope that this is helpful to you. So I hope that this is helpful to you. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please do leave them down below. I love hearing from y'all. If you have any requests for future tutorials, I'd love to hear that as well. And yeah, all the links for everything are down in the video description. For if you want to make your own scale top, it'll get you started shopping for where we get our tools and materials. And then thank you to all of our channel members. Y'all make our world go round. That's our channel members, our Happy Crafter Club members, and our Patreon supporters. More information about all of those things are down in the video description as well. And we do new tutorials all the time, you guys. So I'm always looking for new projects and new crafts to work on, and so I look forward to hearing from y'all, but I do think that's everything. So I'm going to get this video edited, get my bra back from this mannequin, and I will see y'all in our next video. So until then, you guys, thank you and happy crafting. Mwah! Bye. Oh, and if you sew it onto a bra, you don't have to have the ribbon straps or anything on it unless you want to for like decorative purposes, but